Morning, Dr. Morse, injury experts. So breaking news this morning, potential number one pick from Penn State, Abdul reportedly dealing with a foot injury in his right foot, they announced after some imaging yesterday at the combine. Now, we've heard some rumblings of a couple different possibilities. They're calling it a stress reaction, and I'll kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at. If he needs surgery, how this is going to impact his potential pick, and whether or not he's going to be able to play immediately. So there's a couple different types of locations we can have a stress fracture. Traditionally, we have stress reaction, then it progresses to a stress fracture, then it becomes a full fracture. Think of almost like an egg where you hit it on the side and it gets a little cracked. That would be more of a stress reaction. If you keep pushing it, and it will crack a little bit further. If you push it harder, it will fully crack, and that would be a full fracture. Now, if we look at the foot, there's a couple areas that traditionally have stress fractures. The most common area is the base of the fifth, which is what we call a Jones fracture. That is traditionally here, more closer to the heel. That is traditionally because there's a very poor blood supply. The blood supply is here, the blood supply is here, but there's a gap that doesn't have it, and it usually fractures. This is what Derrick Henry had a couple of years ago. The problem with this area is it's almost inevitably going to fracture if it doesn't get addressed with a screw or a plate. Now, that would be an 11-week return to play. So that's something significant. And he would not be able to be at his pro day if he were to have surgery now. He's obviously not going to work out at the combine. If he waits until after his pro day, not only could he make the fracture worse or potentially cause something else, but that may threaten his ability to be ready for training camp. So now you're starting to play with a little bit of fire. This is why we do the medicals at the combine, so you don't have to have any surprises in May or June. Another couple areas. You can have it at any of the bones up here. The navicular bone is traditionally known to have a stress fracture component because it also has a poor blood supply. Not as common, but it can definitely happen. And then we can also get them at the second, third, or fourth, closer to the toes, metatarsals. Those are usually in more distance runners as opposed to elite defensive ends and tackles and stuff like that. But it can technically happen. The issue with this is that if the fracture is severe enough and they say, hey, you need to have a screw placed in this. Not only do you have to have a screw and then you have to wait 8 to 10, 12 weeks, depending on exactly where it is, but then eventually you might need to have it removed again, meaning have the screw removed. So that's a second surgery. Now, we saw Julio Jones deal with, we saw Greg Olsen deal with this, and unfortunately some people, if it is a base of fifth Jones fracture, sometimes they never do well. So this could be a game changer. This could be nothing. This is a very slippery slope. Do I feel that teams are going to be off of him at 1 because of this? Yes. Why? Because remember, he's already dealing with another injury in his shoulder. We don't know the severity of that. So are we doing with shoulder and now foot? What else did they find in those medicals? He's not the biggest guy for his size, in terms of compared to some of the other guys that play that position at that high of a level. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But there are some red flags here. If I were a betting man, he does not go in the top 3 anymore. It's just too much guaranteed money. It's too much risk, despite how elite he is, and despite himself calling himself the best player in the draft. You're only good to your team if you are healthy. So that's my thoughts. I'll give you more when we have more. I'm Dr. Jesse Morse, a sports medicine physician in Miami.